Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Buddhist Center. I hope you're all doing well this evening. We're here to talk about Lama Tsongkhapa's Lam Rim, the source of all my good, foundation of all good qualities, using Pabunka Rinpoche's very short text as a beautiful guide to help us elucidate the meaning of this text, the source of all my good, and really shows us how to be able to compare it to the master text, the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And for those at an advanced level who are dealing with the end of the source of all my good, the great treatise on the stage of the tantric path to enlightenment. So before we get started at looking at any of the material or talking any more, let's get ourselves into a more realistic place, maybe than the one we came in with. If we came in totally realistic without a lot of conceptuality and busyness of mind, and don't have a lot of attachments and things that we're running towards and things that we're averted to and don't want going on in our minds, and we're at a perfectly good state of equanimity and a great place from where to gather virtue from and gather wisdom from and so forth, then good. But if you're anything like me, we have a lot of conceptuality. We have a lot of things going on in our mind, and that sort of distraction keeps us from being able to hear things properly, keeps us from being able to really think properly about anything. You think about it when you're under the influence of a lot of attachment or under the influence of anger. How well can you really think about something? How well can you really focus at that point in time and make the best decision possible? Why can't you make the best decision possible? Because your mind is so distracted, being pushed or pulled, that you're not able to really be realistic. So what we're trying to do here is to try to calm the mind down, get it to a more neutral place, more neutral object, which we use as a focal object, our breathing in and out and counting in the front generation aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni. But you could use just breathing, or you could use really anything that you can do just to set a pause, to just get the conceptuality in your mind and all of the things that you're running away from and running towards, to kind of the chatter, to just kind of slow down enough so that you can pay attention to what will make that chatter slow down and more and more and more, and eventually be gone altogether. So you won't have that involuntary thing that drags you towards something, or this involuntary thing that makes you so repulsed by things that come into your life. And you really don't have that moment to really discriminate properly, because it's just such a natural reaction of our mind to just, instantly be ready to jump towards a place of an afflicted, jump through the afflictions, if you will, into a karma. And if we have more control of our mind, if we can calm our minds down, become more realistic, our minds won't have the ability to be so apt to jump through those afflictions into non-virtuous karma. We can maybe see them starting to arise and then try to apply an antidote, because we have a calm enough mind that we're actually looking at it, and that we're actually paying attention to our kind of intentions, because we know that our physical and verbal actions are going to spring from them. So the smarter ones among us, and that would not be me in this category, really pay attention to this calming of the mind, and moment by moment trying to keep this mindfulness of, this is what I've committed to do. These are the things that I'm abstaining from. These are the things that I'm trying to engage in. And moment to moment, holding that is, like in this case, the focal object. The not forgetting, this is what I've been telling my being, my mind to do. I've been telling it to engage in activities in this really specific way. Now that spy in my mind that we always talk about at the beginning of the class, it's watching to see if I'm engaging in that which I've told my mind, told my being I want to. So this extends out of the meditation session into our daily lives, into our walking down the street, and we come into contact with somebody, and they say something to us and we want to react. where is the calmness of our mind and our ability to make a decision that's appropriate in terms of, the real situation that's at hand, and what the consequences are either way of my reaction. Are they going to be good consequences or bad consequences? And what are the consequences going to be? I'm talking in just a regular everyday sense. For this person, what will the consequences be? Are they going to be good or bad for the person that I'm engaging with? And having a calm enough mind to be able to participate in interactions with human beings in reality in a more realistic way, in a nicer way, in a kinder way, in a gentler way. And we can be gentler because we have that moment to be gentle to spring from, because we aren't so just controlled, because we've been practicing controlling our mind. We've been practicing telling our minds what to do. We've been practicing with specific focal objects so that our kind of life purpose, what we want to be doing, if it is living by like the code or the way of life of the Lam Rim, then our mind will be, fixed on that as we go about our daily lives, and our introspection will make sure that that's what's going on. And if that's not what's going on, if suddenly we're distracted and acting wildly, or we're screaming and yelling at someone, hopefully that spy in our mind will say, oh my gosh, you're engaging in something that's going to create a horrible result in terms of karma. You're angry. You're not in the best position to make any kinds of decisions. You need to somehow, take this down to a place of that is actually realistic. Okay, so let's get into the 7-point Vairocanic posture. We've gotten into that many, many times before, so I won't go into a whole lot of detail on what the 7-point Vairocana posture is. Most important thing, keep your back straight. So our focal object, before I was talking about the focal object, or what are we not forgetting? Mindfulness is not forgetting the object. Before I was talking about not forgetting on a moment-to-moment basis what we're supposed to be doing in relation to the Lam Rim as a Dharma practitioner. So we're making sure that we're doing that. In this case, what we're telling our minds to do at this very moment, of course, we're trying to be good Dharma practitioners, but by the way that we're being good practitioners at this moment is by making our mind get really, really focused and shot like a laser at specific things. So our focal object is going to be the breathing in, breathing out, counting of the breathing in and out. So that's, rounds of breath it's called. So you breathe in, breathe out, 1, breathe in, breathe out, 2. So those will be 3 things: breathing in, breathing out, and counting. And then the front generation form you're going to imagine in your mind is there. So in your mind, you're going to imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is actually right in front of you at eye height, about the size of your thumb, about an arm length away. So you're going to imagine that Buddha Shakyamuni is right there, and in a static form, beautiful and radiant, in the most beautiful way you normally would imagine Buddha Shakyamuni, but in a static form. So now we're going to calm our minds down. We are telling it what to do, so that we can then use this exercise to help get our minds to get to the point of calm abiding, and also use this exercise so we can carry it into our daily lives, from our moment-to-moment experiences. And when we have an opportunity, because some sort of condition arises, to act out in a negative way or engage in something that is going to karmically cause us negativity, cause us a bad circumstance, we'll be able to use this calmer mind to be more realistic, and kind of cut it off before it gets out of control, or before it gets too exaggerated, as the inappropriate attention of our mind. Rinpoche always used to talk about how much bigger or smaller it can make an object than it actually is, depending on how much we love it, or we think it's not that great. It's incredible how we exaggerate things, and this over and over exaggeration causes inflation of our actual afflictions to take place. So this calming of the mind actually serves as an opponent to the afflictions in a way of suppression, so that we can then use that time more wisely to participate in things that gather the things that are necessary to become a Buddha. And that is, gathering the collection of wisdom and the collection of merit that we will all need to do, and we will all do. And that's the good news. So let's do this for a little bit. Let's practice calming our mind down, practice telling our minds what to do. I know I say this every class and everybody's probably bored a good gajillion times later, but we can never hear too much. It's time to tell our minds what to do. Our minds have been running wild, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, and that running wild won't allow us to get to the point where we can stop it completely for good. We have to use some means to calm the running down enough so that we can really apply an antidote to all the running, all the negative running that takes place. Okay, so let's do this meditation for a moment, breathing in and out, counting, and the imagining Buddha Shakyamuni in front generation. We're so fortunate to be here this evening, listening to the teachings of Buddha Shakyamuni, a being who has perfect wisdom, perfect love and compassion, perfect skillful means and perfect power, a completely reliable guide. We're here to listen to the teachings given by a completely reliable guide. Where is that being guiding us to? That reliable guide is guiding us to the exact state that he was able to achieve. That reliable guide is showing us the exact path that he engaged in to achieve the state of complete perfection. A removal of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience. We have the tools right in our hands. We have the teachings we've been able to hear and put into practice that will bring about that complete perfection, that complete fearlessness, that complete bliss. We're so fortunate to have this human life of leisure that we read about in the Source of All My Good, this life of leisure that allows us to practice the Dharma, this human basis from which we can so easily practice the Dharma because we have all of these causes and conditions. We have a mental consciousness that can mature to the state of perfection. Buddha has shown us this. Buddha has shown us that his mental consciousness was exactly like our mental consciousness previously, defiled, had the adventitious defilements, and he was able to remove them through engaging in the process of a path. We can do the same. We can mature into that state of complete perfection. Our proliferating Buddha nature, or our Buddha potential, that Buddha nature itself is empty of inherent existence. The Buddha's Dharmakaya is empty of inherent existence. Both my proliferating Buddha nature and the Buddha's Dharmakaya's emptiness has the same exact nature. We have the same nature of being empty of objective, inherent existence, true establishment. I'm so fortunate that's the case. We're so fortunate that's the case because my mind is empty of inherent existence. It isn't in the nature of defilement. It's in the nature of clear light and unsullied, as Dharma Kirti says. And we're so fortunate that we possess this kind of mental consciousness, this kind of mental consciousness that has this treasure of potential to become perfect. And all we have to do is unlock it through the path, unlock it through removing all of the negativities that are not of its nature. And the Buddha has shown us exactly how to do that. We're so fortunate. We should have a sigh of relief if we're having any kinds of stress in our life or any kind of things going on that are hard. Have a sigh of relief that we can end hard things forever. And we have the potential to end them forever because we have a mental consciousness that is not by nature sullied, that is not by nature containing these things that give rise to these experiences of suffering. They're merely additional. And we can make what's additional only virtue. We can make that clear mind only possess excellent qualities, and we can have that clear mind shuck off or have all of the negativities removed from it. And it's amazing that we can do that, and we should smile and rejoice and be so happy that that can actually take place, that the afflictions in our mind, that those seeds and the stains, the imprints, they can all be removed, and they can be removed through a logical path, a path that makes complete sense, and a path that when you engage in it sincerely and you engage in it step by step in a way that Buddha Shakyamuni presented, in a way that the Nalanda Pandits presented, in a way that the great Tibetan masters presented, you will know as years pass that you are on the correct path. You will know as years pass that the nature of reality that is presented by Buddha Shakyamuni and clarified, elucidated even more for the world to understand by Arya Nagarjuna and Buddhapalita and Arya Deva and so forth, and Chandrakirti. We're so fortunate that because these things have occurred, because these elucidations have occurred, we can understand them. So I'm sorry, I got a little off track, but let's be so happy that we have this mental consciousness that can be transformed. We have this human basis that possesses the mental consciousness. Buddha Shakyamuni previously was just like us, had these mental defilements. Our mind is not in the nature of mental defilements and can be purified. And if we have a pure mind that goes from purity to purity in the sense of virtue, and instead of a mix of things that are always having this kind of neutral state of ignorance, always humming, then we can really achieve that state where we're no longer in fear and only have bliss, just like Buddha. And Buddha was so kind to come and show this to us. So imagine now that Buddha Shakyamuni is no longer in a static form. Imagine that he's completely animated. So happy that we're here tonight, and that the bliss that you start to see erupting from Buddha Shakyamuni turns into fireworks that make the entire merit field appear in the space in front of you. Imagining all the holy beings, all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas are in the space in front of you. Imagining Buddha Shakyamuni is there and so animated and so happy. Khensur Geshe Wandak, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, both so happy and proud that we're listening to the teachings by Lama Tsongkhapa. We're engaging in reflection. We're trying to really have the wisdom arisen from hearing, analysis, and meditation. And the only way that we can do that is to start with a proper motivation and try to really listen to these teachings purely. Try to listen to these teachings where we're free from any of the faults of the pots and so forth. So we're going to try to the best of our ability to do that. And imagine how happy that makes His Holiness the Dalai Lama, how happy that makes Khensur Geshe Wandak, imagining all other beings like Geshe Lobsang Gompo and Gen Gyatso Khensur Rinpoche, imagining Demalocha Rinpoche, and imagining Geshe Dorje Damdu and Umzala Geshe Aga, and imagining Geshe Mala Tenzin Ladrin and Ani Tupten Chodron and Chado Rinpoche, and imagining Jeffrey Hopkins. All these holy beings that have elucidated the Dharma for the sake of all sentient beings are in the space in front of you. All these holy beings, imagining the extensive deeds lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Maitreya and Asanga and Vasubandhu and Dignaga and Dharmakirti and Vimuktasena and Haribhadra and Shakyaprabha and Gunaprabha and Salimpa and Atisha, and imagining the profound view lineage passed down from Buddha Shakyamuni to Manjushri and Nagarjuna and Buddhapalita and Aryadeva and Chandrakirti and Shanti Deva and Baba Vega and Chandrashita, and imagining also again Salimpa and Lama Atisha, who containing and integrating these paths and these lineages in terms of various types of views, in terms of bodhicitta, in terms of method, and in terms of emptiness, in terms of wisdom. Imagining all the beings of the practicing blessings lineage passed down from Vajradhara to Saraha and Matripa and Tilopa and Naropa and Lotsawa Marpa and Milarepa and Gampopa, all those holy beings, imagining Atisha passing down the entire Lamrim lineage to Drontompa and the three Kadampa lineages the old Kadampa lineages below that, and imagining all the holy beings of the Nyingma, such as Padmasambhavya and Sakya Pandita, and the Kaji lineages such as Karmapa, and imagining the holy beings of the Galupa lineage such as Lama Tsongkhapa and Kirtap and Jelsep and Baso Chuji Jetson and Gonchu Jimmy Wampo and Jayan Sheba and Janja Ribi Dorje. Imagining Panchen Sonan Drapa, all of these holy beings, 7th Dalai Lama, all these holy beings that we're so connected to by the teachings, by the kindness, by the teachings that His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Khenso Geshe Wandak have given us. We're so fortunate, so blessed that all of these masters have touched our lives in some way, whether we know it or not. Imagining this very powerful field of merit, powerful basis from which we can gain virtue from is in the space in front of us. And now imagining all of the highest Yoga Tantra deities, Performance Tantra deities, Action Tantra deities, all the 35 Buddhas, imagining the protector deities, all these beings are in the space in front of us. And they're so happy. They feel so so glad that for once, all sentient beings that are here listening to the Dharma, and that we're here and that we're actually paying attention. Now we recognize that all the gurus, Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas only want one thing, and that is for every single sentient being to become a Buddha. And we know that for ourselves, that if we want to achieve all of our potential, we have to become a Buddha. And if we want to achieve all of our aims, the only way we can do so is by also simultaneously achieving all sentient beings' aims, by learning how to put others' needs before our own, by learning that others are just as important as us, cherishing ourselves as the worst of all attitudes, cherishing others is the most beautiful of all attitudes. How wonderful we could be if we could take on the suffering of others and give happiness to others, and recognizing that it's the most important thing we can do to put others' needs before our own, and that we can remember how kind they've been to us, remember that each and every sentient being has affected us in so many different ways, and that all the wonderful things that we enjoy are in dependence upon so many innumerable sentient beings that are living and are not living. And we recognize how kind sentient beings have been to us, and we decide that we must take on the task of freeing all sentient beings from suffering and the causes of suffering, because we know that they're so important. They've been so kind to us. They've been so connected to us in previous lives. They've taken care of us when we were most vulnerable. We've made it our duty to bring them to a place where they could be happy forever, a place where they could be free from suffering forever, because that's the only type of situation that we will accept. And we recognize the only way that we can help them with that journey, the only way that we can truly know that we're being the most reliable guide to them, that we're doing the most that we can for them, is to become the most reliable guide in the universe, to become a Buddha. So we recognize that we must become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And the only way that we can become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings is to engage in practices which give rise to minds, that give rise to the mind of bodhicitta. So we know that it's a process of creating various realizations that serve as the foundation for realizing that beautiful mind that aspires to enlightenment, that makes everything you do this spectacular, sparkling virtue. So we know we have to engage in practices which will bring that mind about. We have to habituate our mind with that kind of thought or that intention, that idea of being able to help everyone completely, that unbiased, unbelievable mind that cares for everyone equally. It's going to take work. It's going to take habituation. It's going to take planting various seeds, doing various exercises and so forth in order for us to actually realize it, in order for us to make it, to become, for it to become who we are, for our mind to be this mind of bodhicitta, because it is a mind itself. In order for that to occur, where day and night, we're just thinking about becoming a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings in the universe, we have to start somewhere. And where we can start now is by imagining that we're doing the things that we will do when we're bodhisattvas at higher and higher levels, and when we become a Buddha and can become the most reliable guide and try to help each and every sentient being in their individual way. And we could do it simultaneously because we'll have that capacity as a Buddha. So how could we, what would we think about? What would we do as a Buddha? What we would do is, as a Buddha, is teach the truth of suchness. That's how beings are liberated. We see that in that point that the Buddha made about not washing away the sins of water, not removing negativities with hands, and not giving spiritual realizations in a flash, not just giving them away somehow, that it was going to take the Buddha teaching the exact truth, and then a listener practicing and realizing that exact truth, and then the truth being the same truth in those two beings' minds. That's exactly what it's going to take. So we recognize that the Buddhas know that the only thing that can help all sentient beings is this teaching. The only thing that we can be helped by is this teaching. And the only thing that all sentient beings can be helped by is by hearing a teaching. So we imagine that we're doing what the Buddhas are doing, and what we will do when we are Buddhas, and that is bring all sentient beings to this teaching. Imagine we bring all hell beings, hungry ghosts, animals, humans, demigods, and gods. Imagine we leave out no beings whatsoever. Imagine every single sentient being in the universe is here with us right now, and that we've brought them here to lead them here. We've led them here in order to hear the Dharma tonight, in order to engage in the things that we know that we need to engage in order to be fearless and have bliss. So we've brought them here to be able to participate in those same things so that they can have fearlessness and bliss. And that's the reason why we've done this. And we remember that it's very, very important that while we're imagining the merit field, while we're imagining all sentient beings, while we're engaging in these practices, that we're always recognizing the lack of inherent existence, the emptiness of objective existence of the merit field, of the sentient beings, of the practice that we're doing, of ourselves. We have to see the selflessness of person and phenomena in everything that we're doing and seal our Dharma practices with this, so it doesn't just become another thing that we're grasping at as truly established, another identity, another ego that we've taken on and fixated on and just decided is a better, more cleaner, pure form of an ego, but it is still grasping in the same way at true establishment. So we always have to make sure that we're keeping in the back of our mind, all of these practices are sealed with this idea of the lack of inherent existence. Yes, there's subjective conventional existence, yes, but ultimately there is none of these things that can be found when examined very, very close up. And Nagarjuna said, if the mirage were really water, as you got closer, the water would appear more clearly. And if these inherent existence were to exist, if things were to exist inherently, as you got closer to them, you would be able to find that inherent existence very much more easily than having it become more and more and more vague as you get closer and closer to the object. So now we're recognizing that we're gathering the merit. We have the entire merit field that's full of bliss because there's no bias going on. All sentient beings are here. All sentient beings are here. We are trying to generate the seed of bodhicitta in our mind. We're trying to, mature the seed of bodhicitta that we have in our mind so that it'll grow into that actual entrance into the Mahayana. So we have the bodhicitta field, we have the merit field, and we have this recognition that ourselves, the practice, the bodhicitta field, the merit field, all of these things are empty of inherent existence, empty of the emptiness we have to see of action, agent, and object at all times, so that we aren't clinging to some new identity and thinking that this new identity is a state where we have this kind of non-discursiveness or something, where we're just kind of clinging to a duller state or clinging to a new identity. I think I'm making the most sense. I think I'm making sense out of it. So with this in mind, let's read the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Speaking of emptiness, again, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, where the Buddha taught ultimate truth, the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena, lack of objective existence of all phenomena, lack of intrinsic existence, the lack of true existence of all phenomena. And this kind of clashed with some of the things that Buddha said before and actually said later, because it was taught at such a high scope that second turning of the wheel of Dharma has kind of confused people, or some people weren't ready for it. So the Buddha is taught to scope at times and said other things, but this second turning of the wheel of Dharma is the final view. This is the Madhyamika Prasangika view that you will not be able to negate if you try to logically. And any of the schools that you find below this, whether it's Madhyamika Svatantrika, so we have Madhyamika Prasangika and Madhyamika Svatantrika, or Chittamantran, or Sautrantika or Vaibhashika. If you look at any of the schools below Prasangika, you can negate them. You can find a flaw that doesn't make sense, or that doesn't take enough away. So there's still something there that isn't logical. It's only the Prasangika view that's so subtle that really posits the final reality. But it's very, very easy to land at nihilism, which is the incorrect interpretation of this text when you read it, because the view is so subtle and really has to be understood from years and years of studying proper commentaries and so forth. And then there were those who just couldn't see how it wasn't nihilism, and the Buddha knew they had these imprints that were going to be a blockade for them to be able to see this kind of most subtle form of emptiness. So the Buddha taught staircases, kind of steps for individual practitioners to kind of, get to the highest step they could get to, and they'd arrive at their established conclusion. And then, perhaps that established conclusion they're feeling rock solid about could be met with a consequence that could then make them jump up to another established conclusion that's maybe a little bit higher. So the final established conclusion, the final tenet of the Buddha, is the Madhyamika Prasangika view that's presented in the Heart Sutra. So we see the Heart Sutra presenting implicitly also the teachings of the five paths, the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. Okay, so Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice profound Prajaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajaparamita should see in this way, seeing the five skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no eye dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind conscious dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the three times, by means of Prajaparamita, fully awaken to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. Prajaparamita mantra is said in this way: Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is. One should practice profound Prajaparamita, just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Gala jube nejo namba de ngoje dojo ngai dodo jendru baba lama yi bujinzi nezon gandro zola jazelo gazamara dejandra zamara vegazamara. Aga samara dajandara samarayame deadon gadigate paragate parasangate buddhi so baba conscious jikaye bidoji lubodoji mebodoji shewadoji tagi baji betabesha tanji shetin korea so geren jaji shewada medun bejandan wadan tumbo jin bonzon joji taji de jandan da de so. And now today is a supplement. We're going to read, hold on one second. Okay. As a supplement, we're going to read Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. I think it's important to now and again read this text. It is, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, the root text for the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. So we see that right at the beginning of it. It also talks about the Abhisama Alamkar, being kind of the overarching umbrella, but really it says that this is a commentary on Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So we know that the source of all my good is a text that is condenses all of the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, for sure. So this, this condensed text that we're able to read of just 14 stanzas is condensing the meaning of this text by Atisha, and Lama Tsongkhapa is expanding the meaning of this text in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. So it's interesting when you look at, how one is a summary of the meaning of the lamp, and another is, one could say an expanded meaning of the lamp. So,
Jeff, could you see the screen a second ago?
I did see the screen a second ago. It was great.
You could see the prayer was up.
I could, yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I thought it was fantastic.
Just checking. Okay, I'm going back to that.
Okay, so we'll be reading. I'll try to read it from the screen so I can look straight on, so I don't have to crick my neck. Yeah, there it is. Okay, well, now it's small. Can it go a little bit bigger or no? Am I asking too much? Is that good? Is that okay? Okay, good. Okay, so The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment by Atisha Dipamkara Srijana, born from 982 to 1054. So we know that Atisha was so kind to come to Tibet and clarify a lot of the things that had been kind of mixed up within the Dharma in Tibet at the time. And he came, from India. He was, part of the great monastic universities there, famous part of the famous Vikramalashila monastery. And he came to Tibet, even knowing that his life would be shortened in order to clarify the Dharma and purify the Dharma, and did so much for the Dharma for the whole world, not just Tibet, by going there, because he composed this lamp for the path to enlightenment. And even when it was sent back to India, where great scholars always critiqued works, and if they didn't like a work, they tied it to the tail of a dog and let it run around the town. After he went to Tibet and wrote this work that was supposed to simplify the teachings for the Tibetans who had kind of mixed them up, he sent it back to India, and everyone praised it and said, what an incredible text that was written. So it was praised in India for its contents and being so thorough, as well as the benefits that it did for Tibet in clarifying some of the misconceptions people had about Sutra and Tantra that were going on, and seeing the incompatibility of traditions and so forth. And then, here we are in the United States, or wherever you're listening on whatever platform, in 2023, and we're able to see how Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment and the Lamrim teachings in general can really clarify the teachings of Lord Buddha, and are needed in this world where So many of Lord Buddha's teachings have been distorted or perverted or changed into something that doesn't even really resemble what the Buddha taught at the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. And we're so fortunate that we have these texts still, and that we have these kind of clarifications that we can go to see if what individuals who are presenting the Dharma, see if what individuals are presenting to us as the Dharma is actually the Dharma, is actually authentic Dharma that will produce the results of Buddhahood, will produce the results of liberation of the hearer as solitary realizer. Are these actual Dharmas that the Buddha presented, or just some new thing that was made up, and you stamp a picture of a Buddha near it, and then everybody, who doesn't know any better will just follow it and think that. But luckily, we have access to these incredible teachings and an incredible lineage of instruction, unbroken from Buddha Shakyamuni, that goes through Lord Atisha and Drone Tompa and so forth. We're so fortunate to have been blessed by Khenso Geshe Wandak and all these holy beings in our world that we know about this. So homage to the Bodhisattva, the youthful Manjushri. I pay homage with great respect to the conquerors of the three times, to their teaching, and to those who aspire to virtue. Urged by the good disciple Shanchu Wo, I shall illuminate the path. I shall illuminate the lamp for the path to enlightenment. Understand there are three kinds of persons. Because of their small, middling, and supreme capacities, I shall write clearly, distinguishing their individual characteristics. Know that those who, by whatever means, seek for themselves no more than the pleasures of cyclic existence are persons of least capacity. Those who seek peace for themselves alone, turning away from worldly pleasures and avoiding destructive actions, are said to be of middling capacity. Those who, through their personal suffering, truly want to end completely all the suffering of others are persons of supreme capacity. For those excellent living beings who desire supreme enlightenment, I shall explain the perfect methods taught by the spiritual teachers. Facing paintings, statues, and so forth of the completely enlightened one, reliquaries and the excellent teaching, offer flowers and incense, whatever you have, with the 7-part offering from the prayer of noble conduct, with the thought never to turn back till you gain ultimate enlightenment. And with strong faith in the three jewels, kneeling with one knee on the ground and your palms pressed together, first of all, take refuge 3 times. Next, beginning with an attitude of love for all living creatures, consider beings excluding none, suffering in the 3 bad rebirths, suffering birth, death, and so forth. Then, since you want to free these beings from the suffering of pain, from the suffering and the cause of suffering, arouse immutably the resolve to attain enlightenment. The qualities of developing such an aspiration are fully explained by Maitreya in the Array of Trunk Sutra. Having learned about the infinite benefits of the intention to gain full enlightenment by reading this sutra or listening to a teacher, arouse it repeatedly to make it steadfast. The sutra requested by Viradatta fully explains the merit therein. At this point, in summary, I will cite just 3 verses. If it possessed physical form, the merit of the altruistic intention would completely fill the whole of space and exceed even that. If someone were to fill with jewels as many Buddha fields as there are grains of sand in the Ganges to offer to the protector of the world, this would be surpassed by the gift of folding one's hands and inclining one's mind to enlightenment, for such is limitless. Having developed this aspiration for enlightenment, constantly enhance it through concerted effort. To remember it in this and also in other lives, keep the precepts properly as explained. Without the vow of engaged intention, perfect aspiration will not grow. Make effort definitely to take it, since you want the wish for enlightenment to grow. Those who maintain any of the 7 kinds of individual liberation vows have the ideal prerequisite for the Bodhisattva vow, not others. The Tathagata spoke of 7 kinds of individual liberation vows. The best of these is glorious pure conduct, said to be the vow of a fully ordained person. According to the ritual described in the chapter on discipline in the Bodhisattva stages, take the vow from a good and well-qualified spiritual teacher. Understand that a good teacher is one skilled in the vow ceremony who lives by the vow and has the confidence and compassion to bestow it. However, in case you try but cannot find such a spiritual teacher, I shall explain another correct procedure for taking the vow. I shall write here very clearly, as explained in the ornament of Manjushri's Buddha Land Sutra, how long ago when Manjushri was Ambaraja, he aroused the intention to become enlightened. In the presence of the protectors, I arouse the intention to gain full enlightenment. I invite all living beings as my guests and shall free them from cyclic existence. From this moment onwards until I attain enlightenment, I shall not harbor harmful thoughts, anger, avarice, or envy. I shall cultivate pure conduct, give up wrongdoing and desire, and with joy in the vow of discipline, train myself to follow the Buddhas. I shall not be eager to reach enlightenment in the quickest way, but shall stay behind till the very end for the sake of a single being. I shall purify limitless, inconceivable lands, and remain in the 10 directions for all those who call my name. I shall purify all my bodily and my verbal forms of activity. My mental activities too I shall purify, and do nothing that is non-virtuous. When those observing the vow of the active altruistic intention have trained well in the 3 forms of discipline, their respect for these 3 forms of discipline grows, which causes purity of body, speech, and mind. Therefore, through effort in the vow made by bodhisattvas for pure, full enlightenment, the collections for complete enlightenment will be thoroughly accomplished. All Buddhas say the cause for the completion of the collections, whose nature is merit and exalted wisdom, is the development of higher perception. Just as a bird with undeveloped wings cannot fly in the sky, those without the power of higher perception cannot work for the good of living beings. The merit gained in a single day by one who possesses higher perception cannot be gained even in 100 lifetimes by one without such higher perception. Those who want swiftly to complete the collections for full enlightenment will accomplish higher perception through effort, not through laziness. Without the attainment of calm abiding, higher perception will not occur. Therefore, make repeated effort to accomplish calm abiding. While the conditions for calm abiding are incomplete, meditative stabilization will not be accomplished, even if one meditates strenuously for thousands of years. Thus, maintaining well the conditions mentioned in the collection of the meditative stabilizations chapter, place the mind on any one virtuous focal object. When the practitioner has gained calm abiding, higher perception will also be gained. But without practice of the perfection of wisdom, the obstructions will not come to an end. Thus, to eliminate all obstructions to liberation and omniscience, the practitioner should continually cultivate the perfection of wisdom of skillful means. Wisdom without skillful means and skillful means too without wisdom are referred to as bondage. Therefore, do not give up either. To eliminate doubts concerning what is called wisdom and what skillful means, I shall make clear the difference between skillful means and wisdom. Apart from the perfection of wisdom, all virtuous practices, such as the perfection of giving, are described as skillful means method by the victorious ones. Whoever, under the influence of familiarity with skillful means, cultivates wisdom, will quickly attain enlightenment, not just by meditating on selflessness. Understanding emptiness of inherent existence through realizing that the aggregates, constituents, and sources are not produced as described as wisdom. Something existent cannot be produced, nor something non-existent like a sky flower. These errors are both absurd, and thus both of the two will not occur either. A thing is not produced from itself, not from another, also not from both, nor causelessly either. Thus, it does not exist inherently by way of its own entity. Moreover, when all phenomena are examined as to whether they are one or many, they are not seen to exist by way of their own entity, and thus are ascertained as not inherently existent. The reason of the 70 stanzas on emptiness, the treatise on the middle way, and so forth, explain that the nature of all things is established as emptiness. Since there are a great many passages, I have not cited them here, but have explained just their conclusions for the purpose of meditation. Thus, whatever is meditation on selflessness, in that it does not observe an inherent nature of phenomena, is the cultivation of wisdom. Just as wisdom does not see an inherent nature in phenomena, having analyzed wisdom itself by reasoning, non-conceptually meditate on it. The nature of this worldly existence, which has come from conceptualization, is conceptuality. Thus, the elimination of conceptuality is the highest state of nirvana. The great ignorance of conceptuality makes us fall into the ocean of cyclic existence. Resting in non-conceptual stabilization, space-like non-conceptuality manifests clearly. When bodhisattvas non-conceptually contemplate this excellent teaching, they will transcend conceptuality so hard to overcome and eventually reach the non-conceptual state. having ascertained through scripture and through reasoning that phenomena are not produced nor inherently existent, meditate without conceptuality. Having thus meditated on suchness, eventually after reaching heat and so forth, the very joyful and the others are attained, and before long, the enlightened state of Buddhahood. If you wish to create with ease the collections of enlightenment through the activities of pacification, increase, and so forth, gained by the power of mantra, and also through the force of the 8 and other great attainments like the good pot, if you want to practice secret mantra as explained in the action and performance tantras, then to receive the preceptor initiation, you must please an excellent spiritual teacher through service, valuable gifts, and the like, and as well as through obedience, through the full bestowing of the preceptor initiation by a spiritual teacher who is pleased, you are purified of all wrongdoing and become fit to gain powerful attainments. Because the great Tantra of the primordial Buddha forbids it emphatically, those observing pure conduct should not take the secret and wisdom initiations. If those observing austere practice of pure conduct were to hold these initiations, their vow of austerity would be impaired through doing that which is prescribed. This creates transgression, which are a defeat for those observing discipline. Since they are certain to fall to a bad rebirth, they will never gain accomplishments. There is no fault if one who has received the preceptor initiation and has knowledge of suchness listens to or explains the tantras and performs burnt offering rituals or makes offerings of gifts and so forth. I, the elder, Deepamkara Shri, having seen it, explained in sutra and in other teachings, having made this concise explanation at the request of Shanchu U. This one's translated by Rus Sonam, I believe. I think that's what it said. So thank you. So nice to read that. One of the first texts Rinpoche taught us when he came here. So important. You see all the points of the Lam Rim in there, and the Ngarim also, the tantric path. You see the stages of the tantric path all in there. It's incredible how skillful Lord Atisha was to be able to take all of the sutras and tantras and put them into an order which a being could make sense out of and practice in an integrated way. And really, we're blessed beings to be in a world where we don't have to try to make sense out of things that are so subtle without some kind of guides, without some beings that will hold our hands so gently and lead us to the correct understanding of these things and the correct order of our practice in order to achieve the realizations that we all crave. And I say crave because we want to be, free from suffering, and we want to have permanent bliss. Everyone wants to be happy, and no one wants to be free from suffering. So when I say crave, I don't mean that like in a negative way. I mean want, and all desire is not non-virtue. So when we say we want to become a Buddha, we desire to become a Buddha, that's not non-virtue. That's a good thing to want to become a Buddha. But we then have to recognize some other things too to kind of seal it properly. But we have to understand that desire, when we're looking at it in a negative sense, is necessarily a negative thing, but aspiring to perfection is not a negative thing. So we have to be clear on what's kind of going on in our mind. We'll do the mandala offering. I almost concluded mandala offering. You guys probably would all love to conclude. Okay, so just joking around. So the outer mandala offering, the fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain. The teachings deep and wide, I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Sanje Jadan Zaji Janan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Juje Jibe Zonanji Drala Benje Sanje Drubasho Sanje Jadan Zaji Janan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Juje Jibe Zonanji Drala Benje Sanje Drubasho Sanje Jadan Zaji Janan La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Juje Jibe Zonanji Drala Benje Sanje Drubasho. From Sachen Kunga Nimpos, parting from the four attachments taught to him by Manjushri himself. If you are attached to this life, you are not a spiritual practitioner. If you are attached to samsara, you have no renunciation. If you are attached to your own self-interest, you have no bodhicitta. If there is grasping, you do not have the view. Enthused by great compassion, you taught the immaculate Dharma to dispel all perverted views. To you, the Buddha, Gautama, I pay homage. Okay, here we are again, Thursday night, looking at the source of all my good. It's incredible that we have this opportunity once again to take a peek at everything we will need to know in order to become a Buddha and be able to know what that peek, that quick peek means in a very grand way. And it's neat when we can do that. So we're going to just take it as we always do from the top and looking at Pabunka's commentary, just so we can get things in perspective. We know there's 4 categories according to Pabunka Rinpoche of this text, the source of all of my good. He says that the first category is how to find, the very root of the path is how to take a teacher and serve and follow him or her properly. How to serve and follow him with thought and behavior and so forth. So we find that this is the first category. First category under this stanza: source of all my good is my kind Lama, my Lord. Bless me first to see that taking myself to him in the proper way is the very root of the path, and grant me then to serve and follow him with all my strength and reverence. So we see this first stanza dealing with the first category, which is the very root of the path, which is how to take a Lama and serve and follow him or her properly. Second category, Pabunka says, is the bulk of the text, which is how to train your mind once you found this teacher, what you should do. What are the stages of the path? How do you cultivate? How do you train your mind? What exactly do you need to do once you found a teacher? And Pabunka says that the next stanza deals with this kind of urging Lama Tsongkhapa, or nudging Lama Tsongkhapa is doing, to say, hey, you really should take the essence of this life. You have this life of leisure that has so much that can be done with it. And we know in the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, Lama Tsongkhapa, after he says you have this human life of leisure, that there's so much that can be done with, he shows us exactly what can be done with it by pointing out the beings of 3 capacities in a summarized sense. But here we know there's so much that can be done with this human basis. We can actually become a perfect being from this human basis. So taking the essence of this basis would be to engage in some sort of practice. So this is basically where we land. Pabunka Rinpoche says, in urging to take the essence of this life, or advice that you better take the essence of this life. Bless me to next to realize the excellent life of leisure I found just this once is ever so hard to find and ever so valuable. Grant me then to wish and never stop to wish that I could take its essence night and day. So how then would I take its essence? I would engage in the practices of the beings of 3 capacities, the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity, teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and the teachings for beings of great capacity. So the next stanza begins the teachings shared in common with beings of small capacity that we found defined in Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment as: know that those who by whatever means seek for themselves no more than the pleasures of cyclic existence are persons of least capacity. So here, Lord Atisha defines a person of small capacity in this way. So now let's look at what kind of practice a person who's just seeking the pleasures of cyclic existence, someone who just wants high status, wants a good next life. How would this person go about thinking? What would they think like? And it says they would think like this: my body and the life in it are fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. Bless me first thus to recall the death that will destroy me soon, and help me find sure knowledge that after I have died, the things I've done, the white or black, and what those deeds will bring to me, follow always close behind, as certain as my shadow. Grant me then ever to be careful to stop the slightest wrongs of the many wrongs we do, and try to carry out instead each and every good of the many that we may. If I want to achieve high status, if I want to achieve the pleasures of cyclic existence, I have to stop the slightest wrong of the many wrongs I do and try to carry out each and every good of the many that we may, because we know that virtue causes happiness and non-virtue causes suffering. So then next, we get into the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity and the source of all my good. This is the next, so we could get a great next life. We could have high status in the future. We could have a life of pleasure in our future if we engage in the teaching shared in common with beings of small capacity. So that's what we find presented at length in Lama Tsongkhapa's big work, where it goes through all of the chapters on relying on the teacher and human lives, leisure and opportunity, and death and impermanence, and reflecting on future lives, etc. So next, Atisha's Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment deals with the teaching shared in common with beings of medium capacity. And it says, those who seek peace for themselves alone, turning away from worldly pleasures and avoiding destructive actions, are said to be of middling capacity. So someone of middling capacity who seeks nirvana. Peace for themselves alone here means nirvana, individual liberation, the Hinayana nirvana, an abiding nirvana, and the mind of nirvana just liberated just for me. That's just for me. I have compassion for all of you, but I can't become a Buddha. I don't have that capacity, but I can become liberated. I can enter nirvana. So for those who seek peace for themselves alone, should be turning away from worldly pleasures and avoiding destructive actions, are said to be of middling capacity. So let's see what Lama Tsongkhapa says about that. So Lama Tsongkhapa says then, bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. Okay, so Atisha says, those who seek peace for themselves alone, turning away from worldly pleasures. You see how much it's in sync, how in sync Tsongkhapa is with Atisha with these texts. And I wish we had more time to look at it. I literally could do this till midnight. I won't, but I literally could. You start to see how beautifully explained this text is by Tsongkhapa. It'll give you chills, really. It's incredible. It really is incredible. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Those who seek peace for themselves alone. That's the same as that happiness of freedom in this case. Here we're talking about an abiding nirvana, the happiness of freedom. When we look at, we have two things, high status, which we just talked about in the small scope. And then we have certain goodness. Certain goodness has two categories. Certain goodness of the, Hinayana liberation, hearers and solitary realizers, and then the certain goodness that is Buddhahood. So here, this certain goodness that we're talking about is the liberation for yourself, an individual liberation, the solitary vehicle. It's named a bunch of the maybe Theravadan tradition, but really the Hinayana tradition. So we're saying that, people who want to seek liberation and turn away from worldly pleasures are those of medium capacity. So we see, grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and to recall that I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddhist teachings. And here we see, I have to do it. We go back to the lamp and we say, okay, those who seek peace for themselves alone. So we match it up, strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Turning away from worldly pleasures. Bless me to perceive all that's wrong with the seemingly good things of this life. I can never get enough of them. They cannot be trusted. They are the door to every pain I have. Grant me then to strive instead for the happiness of freedom. Grant that these pure thoughts may lead me to be watchful and recall what I should be doing. Grant me to give the greatest care to make the vows of morality the essence of my practice. They are the root of Buddhist teachings. It says, turning away from worldly pleasures and avoiding destructive actions are said to be of middling capacity. So we see all of this contained in this little short poem. And then Lama Tsongkhapa will go on, to talk about that for chapters and chapters, what that medium scope really, really refers to. It's just so beautiful to be able to link these two. And then next level is the teachings for beings of great capacity. So those were the teachings shared in common with beings of medium capacity that allow you to achieve liberation. Now, the teachings for beings of great capacity. Who are those people, according to Atisha? Those who, through their personal suffering, truly want to end completely all suffering of others, are persons of supreme capacity. So you see here, Atisha is even confirming what Lama Tsongkhapa says over and over and over again, that we have to realize the prior teachings in order to realize the next ones. There's a foundation. There's a foundation. What's the foundation for us being able to get bodhicitta? Well, it's to be able to, first, through realizing our own suffering, we say, oh, hey, everyone else has the same suffering that I have. We want to not only completely end ours, we want to completely end everyone's. So then that's how Lama Atisha, Lord Atisha, defines the great being of great capacity. Now let's look, Lama Tsongkhapa starts now. This section is where the section begins on the teachings for beings of great capacity, where we're at. I have slipped and fallen into the sea of this suffering life. Bless me to see that every living being, everyone my own mother, has fallen into. Grant me then to practice the wish for itself, to take on myself the task of freeing them all. Bless me to see clearly that the wish itself is not enough, for if I'm not well trained in the three moralities, I cannot become a Buddha. Grant me then a fierce resolve to master the Bodhisattva vows. So we know in Atisha's Lamp, it talks about the inspiring and engaged bodhicitta and the Bodhisattva vows, and so forth, and having to engage in them in order to become a Buddha. So it gets into this all in the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. So when we look at the three moralities, we know that the three moralities are referring to very specific things. So first, the morality of keeping the, okay, I just know these. The morality of keeping oneself from committing non-virtue, the morality of amassing goodness, and the morality of working for the sake of all sentient beings. So the morality of keeping oneself from committing wrong or not engaging in non-virtue is the category we're kind of in. We've been dealing with for weeks now at a time. And we know that within that, there's the common moralities, such as the ethics, which abandons the 10 non-virtues. And then the specific moralities, the moralities of the individual liberation vows, the 7 types of lifetime individual liberation vows that we went over, the 2 lifetime individual liberation vows of the lay person, the 2 of for the novice, monk, and nun, that's 4, 1 probationary nun vow, making 5, and fully ordained monk and nun vows, making for a total of 7. So those are individual liberation vows. When we talk about sets of vows, we say 3 kinds of vows. A lot of times we're talking about the individual liberation, bodhisattva, and tantric vows. Now, let's move on to the bodhisattva vows where we left off last time. So the bodhisattva vows, we can read the 20 verses by Chandra Groman, which has all the bodhisattva vows in it with the supplement. Sometimes we'll find of Shantideva's compendium of trainings to include all of the secondary vows and so forth. So there are 18 root and 46 secondary bodhisattva vows. And I don't know if I have my text with me, which will only take me 1 second to get. Just hold on 1 second. Let me grab it. Nobody's got to come. I grab it. Okay, just talk amongst yourselves. I'm back. Yeah. Ow. Okay. All right. So we were talking last week about the bodhisattva vows. And we can unscreen share. So we were talking about the numbers of Bodhisattva vows. So there are 18 root vows and 46 secondary Bodhisattva vows. Okay, sounds like a lot. But when you are a Bodhisattva and actually receive these vows, your mind's going to be really, really calm and focused, and being able to pay attention to 18 plus 46, 64, won't be hard because you'll have the kind of mind that can do it. But the way that you become a bodhisattva is kind of practicing what they do, making your mind more like one so that you become one. If that makes sense. You're practicing the 6 perfections. You're practicing the bodhisattva vows, even though we know that you have to have the basis of aspiring bodhicitta. You already have to be a bodhisattva to actually really receive a bodhisattva vow. We take bodhisattva vows, aspiring and engaged bodhisattva vows, because we're trying to leave imprints, predispositions in our mind. We're creating kind of a facsimile of it so that we can then create these imprints that connect with the actual vow when we have the foundational realizations, when we actually have bodhicitta, can get the vow because we have bodhicitta and have the foundational realizations that are necessary for it. But some of the foundational kind of causes and conditions are acquainting our minds with the bodhisattva vows. And what's interesting about the bodhisattva vows is the individual liberation vows are not, they're vows of renunciation. You're saying, I believe Buddha's a reliable guide. Okay. So whatever Buddha has said that I should do, I'm going to believe that's what I should do. So monks and nuns don't study. They have hundreds of vows. They don't study them. You're not supposed to study the Vinaya until you actually take the vows. It's like, there's that much of a kind of pre-study into the reliability of what the Buddha would say to someone who would become ordained to abstain from or to engage in, that you would have so much faith that you would just take the vow and then go on to study them. I always thought that sounds strange, but that's the tradition. The tradition is that you have so much enthusiasm, you will do anything that it takes to emerge from cyclic existence. So you will abstain from this or that if the Buddha says to, because that's what's in your best interest. And obviously culturally, you already know what a lot of the main vows are. That you can't kill, you can't steal, you can't lie, you can't, engage in sexual conduct and so forth. So you already kind of know that. And then the rest of the vows, going into, that. The rest of the vows, you learn once you have the Vinaya. And there's some good argument for that too, is that if as lay people, we aren't holders of the fully ordained vows, say, or if we're a lay person, we don't have a lay householder's vow. It's really not our business. And it's really easy for us to start judging others, say, oh, they have 250 something vows, and are they keeping them? And if you know each and every one of their vows, you start looking and making sure and checking, oh, are they doing this and doing that right? And really, it's about your own personal spiritual evolution. And really, those vows are very complex and are very hard to keep them all, and everyone does the best that they can, and they're doing it in order to become liberated, hopefully. So the bodhisattva vows are different. Bodhisattva vows you can study before you actually take the bodhisattva vow. And it makes sense because you could take a bodhisattva vow and the lamas give it in ceremonies before you're a bodhisattva, and will give you an initiation before you're a bodhisattva. And it says that it's only bodhisattvas that really should enter a mandala. So there's a lot about making imprints and connectivity to our future selves, who will be qualified to actually really take that Bodhisattva vow, but we'll have had these conditions of prior ceremonies in our minds that connect us right to it, if that makes sense. I think it does. Okay, so the first Bodhisattva vow is praising yourself and belittling others because of your so this is what you shouldn't be doing. You should not praise yourself and belittle others because of your attachment to receiving others, being respected and venerated as a teacher, and gaining profit in general. So very obvious, I'm the greatest in the world. You're so stupid. You're so bad. Now, if you are trying to correct someone else and not because you have bad motivation, if you're trying to, use some tough love or something, then you would not arguably, if the right motivation is there and the wrong motivation is not there, be breaking this vow. But I think it's pretty clear. Praising yourself and belittling others. I mean, you can just kind of leave it at that. But because of your attachment to receiving offerings, being respected and venerated as a teacher, and gaining profit in general. We can look at commentaries later on to go even deeper into this stuff if you'd like. Not giving material aid or teaching to the Dharma to those who are pained with suffering without a protector because they're being under the influence of miserliness or wanting to amass knowledge for yourself alone. Like if Rinpoche said, I'd love you to continue to keep teaching the Dharma. And then I said, I have learned so much and I have all of this information and it's mine. And you can't have any of the extra that I have, or you can't have, anything that I could share with you. So that's really what it means, being miserly, maybe hearing and, hearing something that's really, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And not wanting to share it with others because you want to have this kind of golden key. So that's kind of what it means, trying to, keep this kind of veil of around the knowledge of the Dharma. And it's almost in a way where it then makes you more special because you are the one who has this thing. So we're always looking at how the Bodhisattva vows are constructed to work for the sake of all sentient beings, to help others at an ultimate level. Not listening to someone who has previously offended you, but declares his offense and begs forgiveness and holding a grudge against him. So we talked about, these are the three I think we got through last week. Condemning the teachings of the Buddha and teaching distorted views. So as a Bodhisattva, I don't know why, you would, say, suddenly maybe you went awry and you have some kind of ulterior motives, because you can lose your bodhicitta still at the lowest level of the path of accumulation. So you can go astray at some points, but you wouldn't have the Bodhisattva vow yet. But we'll just leave that there. But just things to think about. We have to always read into all of this and think about what the implications are and so forth of all of this. Condemning the teachings of the Buddha and teaching distorted views. Taking offerings to the 3 jewels of refuge for yourself by means of stealth, robbery, or devious schemes. Meaning if there were offerings that are supposed to go to the 3 jewels, you take them for yourself. You shouldn't take anything. Misappropriation of funds, we know in the West. We know what that is. That's just misappropriation of things that were meant for offerings that were meant for the 3 jewels. Despising the Tripitaka and saying that these texts are not the teachings of the Buddha. The 3 baskets aren't the teachings of the Buddha. Vinaya basket, Sutra basket, Abhidharma basket. These aren't the teachings of the Buddha. Saying that, finding, how Lord Atisha shows us that all teachings are free from contradiction. They're all instructions to practice. We can easily understand the conqueror's intent, and we won't, have that great wrongdoing, the great wrongdoing of despising the Tripitaka, thinking that certain teachings are good and certain teachings are bad, abandoning the Dharma. We have to be able to see that all teachings are free from contradiction. And understand that as a Bodhisattva, we may need to teach folks the hearer path, not the Mahayana path. So we need to understand all of the paths, because the Buddha taught to all capacities. It doesn't mean that now it's 2023 and there aren't all these other capacities. So we have to be able to see still that no teachings contradict each other, and they're all for the varieties of practitioners to be able to become enlightened. Evicting monks from a monastery or casting them out of the Sangha, even if they have broken their vows because of not forgiving them. So not having forgiveness. And this is in a monastic sense. If a monk has done something bad, whatever that may be, according to that monastic institution's specific rules, obviously the root 4 vows, but not forgiving them. But each individual monastery would have their own, policies on that and so forth. So I don't know much about that. Committing any of the 5 heinous crimes of killing your mother, your father, an arhat, drawing blood intentionally from a Buddha, or causing division in the Sangha by supporting and spreading sectarian views. So that's pretty obvious. But, so this is number 8. Number 9, holding views contrary to the teachings of the Buddha, such as sectarianism, belief in the 3 jewels of refuge, the law of cause and effect, and so forth. Not believing in the 3 jewels, not believing in refuge, not believing in karma and its results, thinking, oh, I'm this high Bodhisattva tantric practitioner. I can engage in non-virtue because it's empty and I'm somehow, transforming it into nectar. So I'm going to kill this human and I'm transforming this into a pure act. There's a lot of things that can occur. If you get a distorted concept, even if you think that you are practicing correctly, completely destroying any place by such means as fire, bombs, pollution, and black magic, teaching emptiness to those who are not ready to understand it. Here's one that I'm always concerned about. I'm teaching to like multiple platforms. I have no idea what your basis of understanding is. I start talking about the lack of inherent existence, lack of objective existence, start talking about emptiness. And if you only catch this for a second, you might think I'm saying Buddhism says that nothing exists. So we have to make sure. So this is something I always get concerned with as a teacher who's teaching to varying audiences, and I don't know exactly who my student body is. I worry, am I teaching emptiness to those who are untrained when I start to give descriptions of the Heart Sutra and dependent origination being a reason for emptiness, being a reason for the lack of inherent existence. So it's important that we always are mindful of things like this. And that's why I never go too far. And I wouldn't unless it was a more intimate setting where I could really know the audience and the participants and the level and know that they're going through in a connected way the understanding of how things subjectively, conventionally exist and how they ultimately do not. So that's just a thought on that. Turning people away from working for full enlightenment of Buddhahood and encouraging them to work merely for their own liberation. So saying, don't worry about Buddhahood, just go for nirvana, just an individual nirvana. Encouraging people to abandon their vowed rules of moral conduct. Like, don't worry about it. Going to a monk, you or none. You could have a drink, have some alcohol. It's no big deal. The 5th vow or so. Causing others to hold the distorted views you might hold about the Hinayana teachings, as well as belittling the Hinayana teachings and saying that their practice does not lead to nirvana. Bodhisattvas have to teach the Hinayana teachings. Again, all beings aren't ready for the Mahayana. The Buddha taught the Hinayana for a reason. So we have to understand that those teachings, that one can have fearlessness by getting rid of the afflictive obstructions and by engaging in the hearers or solitary realizers path. That path does lead to nirvana. Practicing support, number 15, practicing, supporting, or teaching the Dharma for financial profit and fame, while saying that your motives are pure and that others are pursuing Dharma for such aims. That's obvious. Telling others, even though you may have little or no understanding of emptiness, that if they obtain a profound understanding as you have, then they will have become as greatly realized as you are. So if I were to say, something that I knew all of this stuff about emptiness, I've realized it. And if you do this, that, the other thing, then you'll realize it just like me. And I really know nothing about it. So this is, don't do that. Taking gifts from others and encouraging others to give you things originally intended as offerings, the 3 jewels of refuge, So it's just another part of misappropriation and taking anything away from those monks who are practicing meditation and giving it to those who are merely reciting texts. So seeing like discriminating, saying, oh, well, you're just practicing meditation. Those who are reciting texts are better. You shouldn't have resources. So anyway, those are the 18 root Bodhisattva vows read quite quickly. I know it's time to end class, but I think it's auspicious. I think that we can always keep learning, always keep reading, always hear new things. And, there's, we can keep doing it until we die. And we will have to keep doing it until we die if we want to move closer to Buddhahood. So let's just do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. Actually, I was going to be lazy. I'm sorry. I'm not. The prayer for the flourishing of Jitsongkapa's teachings by the Losang Jatenma. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's Dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. When in the presence of Buddha Indraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destruction, his pure meditation cleansed of dark fog and fading, his pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Learned since he extensively sought out learning, reverent, rightly applying it to himself, good, dedicating it all for beings and doctrine. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one's person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to the explanations of the three Pitakas, realizing teachings, practice of the three highest higher trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Hourly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle. Heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles. May the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord, Vaishravana, Karmayana, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the conqueror Losang's teachings flourish. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Any mistakes that I've made, may they be purified by this Vajrasattva mantra, imagining Vajrasattva as inseparable from your root Lama, inseparable from Kensur Geshe Wandak, inseparable from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, inseparable from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, whomever your root Lama is, imagining Vajrasattva there, and that white light rays and nectars are raining down on you and all sentient beings and transforming into white ohms and purifying your body. Red light rays and nectars are showering down on you and all sentient beings and transforming into red Oz and purifying yours and all sentient beings' speech. And blue light rays and nectars are raining down on you and all sentient beings and turning into blue homes and transforming yours and all sentient beings' minds into pure minds. Om Benzo Sato Samaya Menupalaya Benzo Sato Zeno Bajita Didameva Sutokaya Meva Zubogaya Meva Anuradu Meva Zavaziri Mebaraja Zavagama Suchime Kitam Shriyam Guru Hum Ha Bhagavan Zavadata Gata Benzo Mame Muka Benzo Baba Mahasamaya Sapa Ahom Be. May we always be protected by Paul Dalamo. Jorama 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 Junjagarajama Rama Jadajun Jorang Jong 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 Jorama 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 Junjagarajama Rama Jadajun I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. Prayer for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Chenrezi, in our world, we're so fortunate to have a being who has only excellent qualities and has gotten rid of all negative qualities. We have this being in our world, and may he stay very, very, very much longer. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. And now the prayer for the supplication to Khenser Geshe Wandak, who we all know passed on March 6th of 2022. We miss him so much, and I wrote this as a supplication to him. And it's called A Complex Yogi. If we can't screen share, it's okay. I'll just read. A complex yogi poses as a simple monk. Homage to Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, our precious spiritual friend who is inseparable from Aryatara. I fully prostrate, covering as many atoms of the earth as possible to your pure body, speech, mind, and enlightened activities. I offer to you drinking water, bathing water, flowers, incense, candles, scented water, food, music purified by Om, Ah, Hum. The rarity of having 1 million wish-fulfilling gems is a common occurrence compared to meeting with a holy teacher like you who placed the complete path to enlightenment, to Buddhahood in our childlike hands. Just like Atisha who came to Tibet with a lamp to dispel the darkness of ignorance, you, kind abbot, arrived in the West with a lineage purer than a diamond and begged us never to be satisfied with partial instructions. The teachings of the extensive deeds and profound view lineages flowed from your lips like nectar from our ears, that elucidating the teachings for beings of 3 capacities. Now the sound has stopped. All composite things are impermanent. You told us that all of your teachers passed away and understood this sadness, entreating us to continue our studies. The Buddha does not wash away the negativities of beings, nor does he remove their miseries by his hands. His spiritual realizations are not transferred to them. It is by teaching the truth of suchness that beings are liberated. We are not prepared to take this difficult journey to the highest goodness of Buddhahood without your continued guidance. The sadness in our hearts would be too overwhelming. May you swiftly return to this world and take care of us in all of our lives, wherever we may be, never leaving our hearts and crowns. May all sentient beings perfectly realize renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness, so they know who you really are. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate all of you listening, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you on Sunday at 10 a.m. For the next teaching on Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Truth.